The sun had already slid below the horizon, but the streets of Lviv outside the student dormitory window were still illuminated. The calm of the night was interrupted only by the wind gently playing with the leaves of the trees in the courtyard. Alina, holding her breath, watched her fiancé through the open window. Artem stood on the sidewalk outside the building, talking to someone on the phone. She quickly brought the mobile phone to her ear to better listen to his words. In addition to the news from Artem, her heart was pounding so fast as if it wanted to burst out of her chest. What was this conversation about? If you don't like it, I can understand. However, you know it's important for our families. We will definitely find ways to make it work. We just have to support it. Alina heard Artem's voice, his tone filled with contagious optimism, but to her, it sounded untrue. Those words pierced her like a sharp arrow. They tore her heart into pieces. Did Artem not love her? All this time she believed their engagement was an expression of their love. But now everything she thought about their future unraveled before her like a tangled ball of yarn. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she pushed them back, forcing herself to stay strong. She couldn't allow herself to fall apart here, in front of the whole world. But inside she felt empty, uncertain, betrayed. She had to find out the truth. And she knew what it meant. Quickly grabbing her coat, she wrapped a scarf around her neck and left the room. Her steps were determined, though she didn't know exactly where she was going. Her mind screamed for her to turn back, to close the door, lie down in bed, and close her eyes. But her heart wouldn't let her. The rain was falling, and she felt the drops mixing with her tears on her face. Alina didn't stop until she reached the park near the university. Her thoughts were a kaleidoscope of confusion and pain. Why didn't Artem tell her the truth? Did he ever love her? Her dreams of the future shattered disappointingly like dust before the wind. But now she had to accept this truth and find the strength within herself to get through it. She sadly smiled as she remembered her old song, "Let It Be As It Should Be." It seemed like those words had taken on a completely different meaning now. Sitting on a bench in the park, she felt her heart still aching with disappointment. She stared emptily at the water in the pond, trying to find answers to her questions. But the answers didn't come. She knew she needed to talk to Artem to address this issue. But she couldn't do it now. She needed time to gather her thoughts, to figure out what steps she should take next. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She needed to distance herself from this painful feeling of betrayal to find the strength to move forward. But how? A stream of ideas raced through her mind. She could change her plans regarding Artem, leave him, seek happiness elsewhere. Or maybe she should leave everything she knew behind and embark on a journey of self-discovery. Though it seemed foolish and risky, she felt it might be exactly what she needed. Alina pondered, looking at the distant sky where the moon silently watched over her. Her future was uncertain, but she felt it was exactly where she should be. She decided that tomorrow she would start her journey. But for now she just needed to calm her soul, forgetting about the painful truth she had uncovered. Closing her eyes, she decided that this evening she would just sit here, in this little corner of the park, and just be. To be with her thoughts, her pain, her uncertainty. And perhaps she would find an answer to her questions that had been painfully troubling her heart. Cold rain washed down Alina's shoulders, but she didn't notice it. Her thoughts were immersed in a sea of tangled feelings and sensations intertwining in her mind. What to do now? Was she ready to hear the truth she already felt? Arriving at the park, she cautiously took out her phone and dialed Artem's number again. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed the dial button. The rings went on, but there was no answer. What could it mean? Was he busy? Or perhaps he was avoiding talking to her. All these thoughts swirled in her head, disturbing her inner world. A sense of helplessness engulfed her, but she couldn't allow herself to succumb to panic. She found herself on a bench in the park, hugging her knees, trying to cope with her turbulent emotions. Time urged her to make a decision. Action was needed. She needed to know the truth, even if it was painful. Deciding that the best place to discuss her feelings would be the cafe on Gorodetska Street that she knew well, she headed there. Along the way, she delved into her thoughts. She wasn't clear on what she expected from this conversation with Artem. Maybe she just wanted to hear his words in person, to see the expression on his face, to understand if he truly didn't love her. The cafe was filled with the aroma of coffee and soft lamp lighting. Alina found a table closer to the window, allowing her to watch the street. Her heart raced as she ordered herself a cup of hot chocolate to calm her nerves. As she waited, her thoughts raced. How would she broach this subject? If he really didn't love her, how could she forgive him? And if it was all a mistake that would ruin their future together? Her contemplations were interrupted by Artem's appearance at the cafe door. He was dressed in a stylish suit, and his facial expression exuded calmness and confidence. But to Alina, he was no longer the same man she once knew. "Alina, darling, what are you doing here alone?" he said, approaching her table with a slight smile. Alina sighed as he sat across from her. Her heart felt so heavy that she could hear it pounding heavily in her chest. "Artem, I have something to tell you," she began, her words coming out slowly. But the pause that followed was incredibly daunting. She couldn't gather her thoughts to express everything she felt. Artem patiently waited for her to speak, but her throat felt constricted, and she felt like she was in a narrow tunnel with no way out. Alina took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "Artem, I recently overheard a conversation. You were talking on the phone, and I heard your words," she said, her voice slightly trembling, and her heart beating even faster than before. Artem's expression changed when he heard these words. He became serious and concerned, his gaze widened, and his breathing became slightly uneven. "Alina, I don't know what you're talking about." "What conversation?" he asked, his voice becoming more strained. You were talking about us, about our wedding, about how important it is to uphold it for our families," Alina continued, struggling to recall his words. "But you didn't say that you don't love me." She felt every word weighing on her soul, like a stone dropped on her heart. But she felt it needed to be said, to uncover the truth, even if it was painful. Artem averted his gaze, sipping his coffee from his cup, but he said nothing. He seemed troubled and elusive, leaving Alina feeling like she was searching in dense fog. "Artem, please tell me the truth. Do you really not love me?" Her voice strengthened as she raised her eyes to him, searching for any sign of an answer. Artem sighed and placed his cup on the table. "Alina, it's not as simple as you think," he said, his voice now full of uncertainty and concern. "Yes, perhaps I don't feel what you call love. But we both know our families have arranged this wedding for us. It's not about what I feel, but what needs to be done for our families." Artem's words hit Alina like a hammer blow. She felt herself crumbling inside, but she also felt the unraveling of her hopes. She never thought her life could unravel around her so quickly and mercilessly. "Artem, I don't know what to do," she whispered, reassuring herself that her voice wouldn't fail her. But even as she spoke these words, she felt they weren't yet an adequate response. She felt she needed time to understand what she truly wanted and how she wanted to move forward. Artem placed his hand on hers, expressing support and understanding. Alina, we'll find ways to get through this together. We'll always be together even if it means altering our plans, he said, his voice gentle and warm. But for Alina those words rang hollow. She knew she couldn't continue like this unless she found the strength and determination within herself. And she knew that meant she had to take the next step on her own. Alina withdrew her hand from the table, distancing herself from Artem. Thank you, Artem. I need time to think about all of this, she said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. She felt his gaze piercing through her, but she couldn't allow herself to look back. She knew it was her own struggle, her own decision, and she needed to figure out what she wanted. Artem leaned back in his chair as she rose and stood up. Of course, Alina. You know I'm here if you need anything, he said, his voice warm and understanding. Alina simply nodded, unable to find the words. Her heart felt heavy, her soul filled with sorrow and a tangle of emotions. She decided she needed to step back from it all for a while to find the inner strength. Leaving the cafe, she stepped out onto the street where the rain continued to pour heavily. She felt the raindrops washing over her face, and it felt like a release to her soul. It was hard for her to understand all of this, but her soul knew it was necessary for her personal growth. She wandered the streets of the city, allowing her thoughts to roam freely. She dreamed of the peace and harmony she once hoped to find with Artem, but now she realized it might be a dream that would never come true. She dreamed of freedom, freedom from expectations and obligations, freedom from constraints and limitations. And most importantly, she dreamed of love, true, genuine love that would fill her heart and allow her to feel alive. She didn't know what the future held for her, but she was certain she was ready to embrace it. Whatever may come, she was ready to take her life into her own hands and pursue her dreams. And so she continued her journey, not knowing what awaited her ahead, but with the confidence that her heart was leading her to where she needed to be. After hours of wandering in the rain, she decided to head back home. Walking quickly under her umbrella, she made her way through the streets that lay before her until she finally stood at her own doorstep. As she stepped into her apartment, she felt her world grow darker and calmer. It seemed like she had all the time in the world to reflect and make decisions. She shook off her wet umbrella and headed to the kitchen to make herself a hot tea. As she sat at the table, her thoughts once again turned like books on a shelf. She felt she needed to find an answer, but she didn't know where to look. Was the love she had held onto for so long more than just a memory? Was she ready to take a risk to find true happiness? Alina dropped a drop of honey into her tea and pondered. She felt her heart inching towards a decision, and it was like a thrilling dance on a tightrope. She could hear every breath, every beat of her thoughts rushing towards her. And then, amidst the disappointment and loneliness, she felt a new ray of light appear. Maxim. A man who sparked new feelings, new hopes in her. A man who gave her the courage to dream of something more than she had ever imagined. At first, she dismissed these thoughts, trying not to let them touch her. But her heart knew differently. It was open to Maxim. It told her that this was an opportunity for a new beginning, for true happiness. Alina took a deep sip of her tea, feeling herself taking an important step into the future. It was uncertainty, but she felt it was uncertainty worth risking. And so, with anticipation, she decided she would follow Maxim. She would no longer live by others' rules, by others' expectations and hopes. She would live by her own rules, by her own dreams. With a smile on her face, she rose from her chair and picked up her phone. It was time to send Maxim a message that would change everything. Time to start a new life, a new chapter. Alina opened a message to Maxim and began to write, feeling her heart pulse faster. Maxim. I hope everything's well with you. I wanted to talk to you about something important. Can we meet tonight? I'd like to share some thoughts with you and hear your opinion. Thank you. She looked at the message, making sure it reflected what she felt inside. Her soul burned with determination. She could no longer postpone this. With utmost tension, she pressed the send button and sat, waiting for a response. Time seemed to pass slowly, but she felt it was a crucial moment in her life. She had already decided what she wanted, and now she just needed to take the first step. When the phone finally lit up again, she instantly picked it up to check the message. A feeling of intense anxiety almost overcame her soul, but she managed to tame her emotions to read the message. Sounds great, Alina. Shall we meet at our favorite cafe at 8 o'clock? I'll be waiting for you. See you there. Reading this message, Alina felt her heart racing again. She smiled, knowing it was a step in the right direction. Now she felt bold, free, and strong, ready to embrace the challenge and find true happiness. With these thoughts in mind, she prepared herself for the meeting with Maxim, feeling that the future was filled with endless possibilities. And despite the uncertainty lying ahead, she was ready to embrace it with an open heart and open arms. Getting ready to meet Maxim, Alina felt a mix of emotions in her heart, from excitement to impatience to uncertainty. She felt it was the first step into a new life, and she was grateful for this opportunity. At 8 o'clock in the evening, they met at the cafe where they usually spent their leisure time. Alina was nervous, but she tried to conceal her emotions behind a mask of calmness. As she approached the table where Maxim was sitting, her heart pounded so loudly that she could hear it in her own ears. Maxim rose from his seat, smiled, and put away his phone. "Hi, Alina," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I'm glad you could make it." "Hi, Maxim," she replied, trying to keep calm. "Thank you for agreeing to talk to me." They exchanged brief smiles, but there was tension in the air. Both knew that this meeting could change everything. The cooperation of the waiter snapped them out of their trance, and they ordered drinks. With each sip of coffee, Alina felt her tension gradually dissipating, and she could focus on her plan. "So, I wanted to talk to you about something important," she began, knowing these were words she couldn't take back. "I've decided that I can't continue my relationship with Artem." Maxim looked at her with interest but didn't show a big reaction. "Why?" he asked gently. Alina felt the words catch in her throat, but she forced herself to continue. "I knew our relationship wasn't what it seemed," she explained. "But now I realize I can't keep playing this game. I need more, I need real love." Maxim looked at her with understanding, his eyes expressing sympathy and support. "I understand," he said softly. "And do you know what you want?" Alina nodded. "Yes, I do," she replied decisively. "I want to be happy, and I believe the path to happiness begins with being true to myself." Maxim smiled, his eyes full of understanding. "Then I support you," he said. "And I'll always be here if you need support." These words gave Alina confidence in her decision. She knew she wouldn't be alone on this journey, that she had genuine support and friends who would stand by her. With this assurance, she rose from her seat, put on her coat, and looked at Maxim with gratitude. "Thank you, Maxim. I know it wasn't easy, but I appreciate your support," she said. "No problem," he replied, smiling. "You deserve happiness, Alina. And I'm confident you'll find it." With these words, they exchanged friendly smiles and went about their business. Alina left the cafe feeling lighthearted and with newfound confidence in her abilities. She was ready for a fresh start, ready to find her happiness, wherever it may be. After her meeting with Maxim, Alina felt no more hesitation. Her decision was made and she felt an inner resolve to move forward. Returning home, she sat down at her table and picked up her phone. At this point, she felt she needed to inform Artem of her decision, although it was difficult. She felt responsible to him, but she knew keeping him in the dark was no longer fair. With a heavy heart, she composed a message to Artem. "Artem, I have something important to tell you. We need to talk in person. Can we meet tomorrow?" She weighed every word, knowing it would be hard for him as much as it was for her. But she felt it was the only way to clarify true feelings and close the doors for both of them. She pressed the send button with mixed feelings: anxiety, hope, responsibility. But along with these emotions, there was also a sense of liberation as she took a step toward her own freedom and happiness. The next day, with a pounding heart, Alina met Artem at their favorite cafe. They sat down at a table and a tense moment hung in the air between them. "Alina, what's going on?" asked Artem, his eyes reflecting concern. Alina took a deep breath, summoning the courage she needed. "Artem, I understand that we need to talk about our future," she said, trying to sound calm. "I've decided that we can't continue our relationship." Artem's surprise was evident on his face, and he tried to understand her words. "But why? What made you decide this?" Alina felt the sadness that came with this conversation, but she knew it was necessary. "We can't continue to be together when there's no real love between us," she explained. "I understand we can be friends, but I feel we both deserve more than just obligatory relationships." It was hard for Artem to accept, but he felt that Alina was speaking the truth. "I understand," he said, his voice subdued. "I'll always cherish our time together, Alina. And I want you to be happy." Alina looked gratefully at Artem, feeling she had made the right decision. She knew it wasn't easy for him, but she also knew it was a step towards managing her own happiness. After their conversation, they hugged, feeling it was a farewell embrace but also the beginning of a new chapter. Alina left the cafe with a sense of peace and determination, ready to take the next steps in her life. Following her talk with Artem, Alina felt relief and sadness at the same time. It was the closing of one chapter of her life and the opening of another. She felt she had taken an important step toward her own independence and happiness. With each step on the street, she felt the weight of the past gradually lifting from her shoulders. She had the whole world of possibilities ahead of her, and she felt ready to explore it. On her way home, she paused for a moment, watching people hurry past her. She felt alive and free, ready to embrace every moment, no matter what it brought. When she reached her door, she opened it with a big smile on her face. She knew there was a lot of work and new challenges ahead of her, but she also knew she could handle them. She opened the window and let fresh air into her home, feeling her heart beat even faster because of it. It was a new beginning, and she was ready to embrace it with an open heart and mind. Looking at her reflection in the window, she saw a bold, determined, and ultimately happy face. And in that moment, she realized that everything she was searching for was already inside her. With this thought in mind, she pushed everything else aside and went to make herself a cup of tea. Life was unpredictable, but she was ready for whatever came her way, with confidence in her abilities and joy in her heart. With the candle in her hand, she pondered about the future. What lay ahead for her? Although it was a scary new beginning, she felt she was ready for it. She was ready to face the challenges that would come and to seek happiness in her life. With the candle in her hand, she returned to the window and looked out at the city sleeping in the night light. She felt new opportunities beginning to unfold before her, and she eagerly awaited what the future would bring. With a determined step, she took the first step in her new life. And although she didn't know what exactly awaited her, she was ready for any challenge fate would bring. With a smile on her face and fire in her heart, she reflected her image in the window and decided that it would be a new beginning, full of possibilities and adventures. She was ready for anything the future held, and she eagerly awaited what would happen next. With this thought in mind, she held her candle up to the window and watched as its light reflected in the window, breaking through the darkness of the night. Her heart was full of joy and courage, and she knew that despite the difficulties, she would be able to overcome them, dignified and strong. With satisfaction, Alina finished the last sliding steps of her prayer, recalling the words of wisdom she had heard from Maxim. With happiness in her heart, she opened her eyes, ready to face any challenges that came her way. Along with the flame of the candle, which still danced on her table, Alina felt the fire in her own heart. She was ready to take life into her own hands and move forward. Glancing at the clock, she noticed it was already late at night. But that didn't matter. For her, this moment was a new beginning, and she was ready for it with all the strength of her spirit and determination. With a light step that impressed with confidence, Alina headed into the room. And although her future may be unpredictable, she knew that with Maxim and her true friends by her side, she could face any trials that came her way. The moonlight shone through the window, illuminating the room. Alina paused for a moment, enjoying this moment of peace and concentration. She knew a long road lay ahead of her, but she was ready for every step. With this thought in mind, she opened the window, feeling the wind embrace her face. With a happy smile on her face, she looked up at the night sky, feeling that life was slipping out of her control and filling with endless possibilities. Alina felt alive, strong, and free, ready for any challenges that came her way. She knew she was capable of anything when she had faith and determination. And pushing her hair behind her ear, she opened the window even wider, releasing fresh air and her hopes into the night. Filled with new energy and determination, she knew this moment opened endless possibilities for her, and she intended to seize each one of them. With courage in her heart, Alina started a new day, ready for whatever the future held. She felt that each day was a new challenge and opportunity, and she decided to embrace them with an open heart and mind. Whispering thanks for the past and tuning into the future, she headed to meet Maxim. They planned to spend the day together, visiting places they had never been and talking about everything on their minds. Walking through the streets of the spring city, Alina felt the world opening up before her. Each step brought new impressions and opportunities, and she felt like she was finally living a full life, free from old limitations. After lunch at a picturesque cafe where they shared their dreams and hopes, Alina and Maxim headed to the park. There they strolled under the birdsong and the rustle of trees, enjoying the peace and harmony that nature brought. During their walk, they discussed future plans, dreaming about what might lie ahead. And although they didn't know exactly what would come, they knew that together they could face any challenge. Finishing their walk, they returned to the apartment, enjoying each other's company and knowing that the future would be happy and filled with love. Thus, after many trials and tribulations, Alina found her happiness and true love. She discovered new horizons, met her closest friends, and made an important step in her life. And although her path may be unexpected and difficult, she knew she would have Maxim by her side to overcome any obstacles that might arise. Essentially, every new day was like opening a new chapter in Alina's book of life. She savored each moment, grateful for the opportunity to experience them, despite all the trials that crossed her path. With the diversity of new experiences and impressions, Alina felt her soul blossoming. Each day was a new color on her life's palette, which she tried to express through her actions and words. With Maxim by her side, she felt invincible. Their love and support created an invisible shield that protected them from any troubles. They were inseparable, ready to overcome any obstacles that stood in their way. Together, they traveled the world, sharing their dreams and hopes, and always supporting each other when needed most. Their love was strong and genuine, helping them through any hardships. New opportunities and challenges came their way, but they knew they were ready for them. Their hearts were free, their souls were blossoming, and they were ready to embrace any gift of life that each new day brought. And as they looked at each other, they knew that even in the darkest night, their love would shine like a bright star in the sky, illuminating their path forward. Thus ended the story of Alina and Maxim, two people who managed to find true happiness and love in their lives, going through the complex path of self-discovery, search, and determination. By their example, they showed that nothing can hinder true feelings and the determination to live a full, happy life filled with love, adventures, and discoveries. Thank you for being with us today. I hope that this story has brought you emotions. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss any of our new stories. Thank you for your support. You are the best.